Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw blobs of fat. Anorexics do this thing, or anyone with an eating disorder, called body checking. And it's just feeling your ribs and your bones to make sure you're still thin enough. Like all throughout, like I would take a bite of an apple and I'd be like, okay, can I still fit my hand around my wrist like this? Yes. And I would feel the bone on my back here and try to touch my hand and my hip bone here and make sure I could still fit my hands around my waist. And I would count all of my ribs every day, 5 times a day. I would move my hand up my arm like this and make sure I could still fit this around my bicep, which I could. If I could do that, I was thin enough. But still, when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see that, and I was never thin enough. I just had this insatiable desire to be as thin as I possibly could be, even if that meant dying. One night, I was flipping through 17 magazine, and I read an article about this girl who joined a sorority when she was in college, and she wanted to be part of the 00 club, the 00 size jean club, and the only way she could physically do that was if she starved herself. She described in the article how amazing it felt to be able to wear 00s and be part of that club. And I made the conscious decision that night, actually February 17th, 2011, to become an anorexic, and I did. I was a ballet dancer for 15 years. So when my ballet teacher told me I needed to lose weight, I kind of took that to the extreme. But along with that, my parents were going through the middle of a separation, and we were moving out of our house, actually foreclosed. My life was like really out of control, and I felt like the one thing that I could control was my weight, and I thought that that would have fixed all my problems, my need for acceptance that I wasn't getting from my parents. I felt like I could get from people if I was thin enough. I had tried forcing myself to purge, to throw up, and I couldn't. I don't have very strong gag reflexes. So I knew bulimic wasn't an option, and anorexic just seemed like the fastest and easiest way for me. So I just stopped eating. I'm a very, very determined person and very all or nothing. So I told myself, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it full out, hardcore. I'm not gonna, take a step back. Like, I'm only gonna move forward from here. So it was that kind of determination that really overcame those pangs of hunger. And when I felt hungry, I would go to dance, or I'd get on my bike and ride my bike for 3 hours, or just do something to take my mind off the hunger. And eventually I just stopped being hungry and stopped craving food. I was 89 pounds at my lowest weight, and I'm 5'7". So that's severely malnourished. I definitely didn't think of myself as thin. I thought when I was skinny enough, I would have self-worth. But I was never skinny enough, so I never had self-worth. I didn't get acceptance. I definitely got attention, but I actually pushed people away. I was ostracized at school. My friends called me anor-lexi-a, my friends, instead of Lexi, and broke up with my boyfriend, lost all my friends from dance. The only people that I could turn to were my dog and my dad. I really wasn't thinking about that rejection until I went into recovery, and I realized everything that I had lost as far as friends go. When I was in the process of being rejected by people, I didn't care. I just wanted to be thin, and that was really the only thing that mattered to me, just being as thin as I possibly could be. So everything else just was out of my mind. Mentally, when I was anorexic, I felt like I was only as valuable as skinny as I was. Like, that's the only thing that made me worthy of having friends or walking the earth. But now I feel like the things that give me worth are not how thin I am. It's my personality and my characteristics, and being a good friend, and having flourishing relationships with the people around me. That's what makes life worth it. I was at an eating disorder clinic for about 2 months, and while I was there, I had guess you could say, like a spiritual awakening. I had brought my Bible and I opened up to the verse Matthew 6:25, which states, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your body, what you will eat, or the clothes that you will wear, because today has enough problems of its own." And that verse, I feel like, really spurred me to finish the time that I had at my eating disorder clinic, and I started eating my meals, and that, I guess, kind of started the recovery process. But as soon as I got discharged and I went back home, I immediately went right back to my old ways, and I was at 110 pounds when I was discharged, and in a month I was back down to 90 pounds, which was really discouraging. And I remember my dad called me on the phone. He was off somewhere traveling, and he told me he didn't want to come home because he didn't want to see me, because he was scared of what he was going to see. And he said, "My 16-year-old daughter is slowly committing suicide." And when he said that, that kind of like flipped a switch in my head. And I was like, I'm 16 and I'm killing myself. Just everything was just falling apart. Like, I suffered bone loss. I was very susceptible to heart attacks. And I realized that my life had barely even begun and I was already almost over. So that's when I kind of decided, okay, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. My dad came home and I said, "Hey Dad, I want to go get a sandwich." And for the first time in a year, I had willingly eaten food, and I went and got a turkey wrap at Big Mouth Subs beside Walmart in Altoona, Pennsylvania, and I just started eating again. And it wasn't easy to start eating again, because I had starved myself for so long and I had taken on this identity of having an eating disorder. So when I decided to start eating again, I had to really decide that I wasn't an anorexic. I was Lexi Helsel. I'm not gonna lie and say that I didn't relapse, because I did. It took me 8-9 months to gain back the 40 pounds I had lost. I would wake up some days and I'd be like, I'm not eating today. And it would really take a lot of willpower to force myself to eat. And eventually it didn't become forced anymore. It just became like it had been before I was anorexic. When you're starving yourself and you're so consumed with your appearance, you can't focus on what really matters in life. It sounds harsh, but it's selfish. It's so selfish and so self-centered, and you cannot live life to the fullest when you're so focused on yourself. And when you take that pressure off and you just relax and enjoy people and enjoy food and enjoy life, that's what it's all about.